Yup, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got into this spot. Well, I've killed myself now more times than Trump's been found guilty for felony charges. I've ended it all in more unique ways than celebrities that have gone to space instead of using their capital meaningfully. I've eaten bullets more times than Elon has tweeted today, and yet I am still fucking here. In some kind of weird time loop where every time that I die, I'm back again, like a Groundhog's Day, or a girl who leapt through time, or a roguelike. I hate roguelikes. I mean, I kind of hate roguelikes. For someone who's played so many of them, they have a crazy high learning curve, are purposefully incredibly difficult, and can be frustratingly annoying. Essentially, restarting a game every time you lose feels like you're padding out a game's runtime in the most psychotic way, and whenever you talk to someone about how many hours you spend in these intentionally difficult spaces, it makes you seem like a masochist, and I mean, I am, but like, why do we need to label that? All these games are so different too that they just don't transfer over easily. Yeah, I mean, Enter the Gungeon and Binding of Isaac are both top-down shooters with similar items and consumables, but then you get Ballad, a poker-based roguelike where the amount of chips you earn per round determines whether or not you move on, and bosses don't have health bars, they have conditions that you have to follow when playing certain hands. Or Returnal, which is completely different to Slay the Spire, and don't even get me started on whatever the fuck Inscription is. You get it. Every game is a different, near impossible beast to beat. Not unlike the difficulty of roguelikes, FromSoft games have a similar theme. Obscenely difficult with a gameplay loop of constantly retrying or relearning from your mistakes. Or fighting games, deliberately obtuse, awkward controls that have you ripping your hair out till you're bald to the bone. Or games like Jump King, Only Up, Pogo Stuck, or the game that this genre is based off of, Getting Over It. Why do we spend so much of our limited time on this fucked up dying planet full of fast food and porn, playing these repetitive, arduous, strenuous, cortisol-inducing games? Well,
one must imagine Sisyphus happy.
Sisyphus was a king in ancient Greece. He seduced his niece, wanted to kill his brother, and cheated death on more than one occasion. But outside of the familial murder and incest, he also thought himself to be more clever, more cunning, and more sneaky than the gods of Olympus. This hubris would cause Zeus to give him an eternal task in the afterlife, to roll a massive boulder up a hill in Tartarus, a task that once completed must be replicated again and again and again, for all of time, endlessly. It's one of the more infamous myths with references to the monarch in both of Homer's The Iliad and the Odyssey. The topic of a few famous books and essays, has a South Korean time loop TV show based around the message, has a physics cooling technique namesake, and seen in a couple games. But perhaps the most notable is from the land of croissants, Remy Ratatouille, and tipping poorly? During the middle of the Second World War in 1942, Albert Camus wrote a book called Le Mythe de Sisyphe, or The Myth of Sisyphus in English. Influenced by Nietzsche and Kierkegaard, this philosophical book talks about the absurdity and existentialism of humanity, comparing our modern lives with an endless task given to Sisyphus. Kamu applies Sisyphus's objective as a metaphor for working useless jobs in factories and offices, a futile existence, explaining that, quote, "The workman of today works every day in his life at the same tasks, and this fate is no less absurd. But it is only tragic in the rare moments when it becomes conscious." He's explaining that these types of occupations are just as impossible, difficult, and absurd as rolling a boulder up a hill for all of time. It's a sentiment mimicked by David Graeber in Bullshit Jobs, this idea that so many jobs are not only meaningless, but contribute to the harm of society. That most of society is propped up by these psychologically destructive jobs that associate worth with occupation. Door attendants, store greeters, middle management, telemarketer, a majority of the corporate world. Work that kills you from the inside out. In a world of automation and high profits, why are we still working factory hours and sweatshop hours? This could have led to a 15-hour work week or universal basic income, unions, and leisure time. Luckily for us, Kamu was a fucking gangster. A moralist writing to oppose Stalin and the Soviet Union, writing that the Soviet Union was not socialist and the US was not liberal. Vehemently anti-fascist, strongly against French authoritarian colonialism pushed onto Arabic countries, while promoting heavily for socialist policies. A staunch anarchist and revolutionary who opposed political violence. Again, a fucking badass. I can't stop thinking about Sisyphus, and how that story makes me feel when I do things that are impossible, that feel like they're never ending. At work with an unending pile of tasks, At home, with countless chores and taxes I will inevitably evade, with games that are meant to be difficult, or in my personal life striving to be better every day. Some of these impossible tasks remind me of the bear. Carmen Brizzato is a young Michelin restaurant chef, one of the most decorated in his age group, helping run his family's run-down, dilapidated sandwich shop in Chicago after his brother commits suicide and leaves him the family restaurant. The shop is in poor condition, bleeding money, and more trouble than it's worth. As if the bears needed more salt in their gaping wound, they're in debt, and the most obvious solution would be to sell off the restaurant and for Carm to work in a functional kitchen, if there was ever one to be found. Throughout the series, despite leaps and bounds of effort into genuinely cultivating a more positive culture at work, and seeing the restaurant slowly get back on its feet, time and time and time again, disaster strikes. Whether it's a burst in the plumbing, a faulty fire suppression system, or Carmi getting stuck in one of the most beautifully composed scenes I've ever had the utter displeasure to watch. It's a show that begs the question, why do we continue to suffer? Why don't we just let it all go? Why do we continue to push the boulder? Carm goes through this when he briefly sets the kitchen ablaze, accidentally, frozen in thought that his life would simply be simpler if he left the store to burn. After all, he gets ulcers when cooking, he has so much financial stress, he has so much mental degradation that he can't even keep a relationship alive. It'd be simpler if it turned to ash. But the human part of him, the part of him that thinks of the joy he has cooking with his brother, to instill passion in his colleagues, to be the best version of himself for himself rather than for someone else, won't let him drop the boulder. The Bear is a show of the feats of passion, someone who needs to understand the parts about us that make us the most human, that allow us to be our best in moments of devotion and dedication, yeah, but also our connections to other people, something that everyone but Carm is learning. Carm doesn't give up. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Why doesn't Carm let go? It'd be easier for him if he did. Well, it'd also make my life a lot easier to not fight the Nameless King, to not hunt down every platinum in the PlayStation library, to not go for gold stakes in Balatro, to not work a lower wage career, because I'm passionate about these things. I'm passionate about the work I do because I believe it's a net benefit to society. I'm passionate about spending hundreds of hours in Yakuza games exploring every nook and cranny of this gorgeous digital playground. I'm passionate about beating the odds however impossible they may be, and Sisyphus, regardless of the pain it causes him, I'm sure is also, in some ways, passionate. Just because it's an arduous job doesn't mean we can't take pride in it, that we give up when it's easier or more logical to do so. So maybe it's paradoxical, but isn't an illogical, paradoxical decision also so intensely human? Kamu says this is what makes Sisyphus interesting. As the stone rolls back down to the foot of the mountain, confronted with his eternal condition, Sisyphus still continues to push, just like the absurd man. A person who sends emails 40 hours a week, a chef who rebuilds his restaurant with every new disaster, a player restarting every impossible roguelike run, an unkindled stepping into Anor Londo for the 70th goddamn fucking time. Dude, these guys have such crazy reach. How is that fair? What? Acknowledging this futility, the difficulty of this task, Sisyphus, the chef, the tarnished, is freed to realize the absurdity of their situation and able to reach a state of acceptance, and thus continue pushing. All is well, one must imagine Sisyphus happy. In the end, all of these works of art are works of art because they capture what it means to be a person. They capture that human condition so beautifully that completing the task is sometimes more enjoyable because of how much you struggled, even if you never really get there at all. So in this vein, I will always love playing roguelikes, just as I'll always love choosing a slightly more unforgiving difficulty setting, just as I'll always fight this boss when I'm underleveled, or take on a task that feels never-ending, because this boulder is all I have right now, and I'll do it for as long as I can. This is giving me a whole different perspective on the whole, killing myself thing. Maybe I don't need to end it all. I mean, it was a really big fuck-up, but I'm sure there's something I can do to fix it. No!